احنا في المحاضرتين اللي فاتوا اتكلمنا عن انواع العلم. هل هناك عايزين عربي ولا انجليزي؟ اتكلم اكتر عربي ولا انجليزي؟
English. خلينا English.
English, right. Okay. Right, we discussed in the previous two lectures the science and the Bible there is a contradiction, and we discovered there are two types of science. Operational science that we do in the laboratory, we get the same results under the same condition, and there is no contradiction with this type of science and the Bible. And it actually, we can't do the operational science except if there is a lawgiver, and that goes with God, the creator. There is another type of science, is historical science or origin science. And these things happened in the past, we cannot repeat them in the present. And that depends on the starting point. So there is atheist starting point, which believes that matter is everything, and everything must be explained by chance, time, and laws of nature. And we discussed that this cannot create life or maintain life. There is another starting point, which is the biblical starting point, that believes that God is outside time, he is all-knowing, and he is the creator. And the Bible is the word of God. And we discussed that, apply this observational science on DNA, and we discovered it cannot come by chance and time and laws of nature. We discussed the observational science, we put the lens on the different groups of people, because when they do the mapping of the human genome, they discovered we are all one race, and that goes with the Bible. And we applied that to the fossils, and we discovered that the fossilization is a process which means the minerals enter into the dead bodies and form a very solid structure like stone, and that should happen very quickly. Otherwise, this bone or the body will decay, and that goes with Noah's flood. And we discussed that the formation of the mountains can happen very quickly, and that goes with the idea of the catastrophic geology of the flood. We remember we discussed the 7 C's: creation, corruption, catastrophe, confusion, Christ, cross-consummation. So today we are going to discuss the Darwinian theory of evolution. That will be our topic tonight. So let me just tell you something about Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin was born in England in 1809, and he was sent to study medicine in Edinburgh when he was about 15, 16 years of age. And when he came to study the medicine, the anesthesia was not developed at the time. So he saw a very tough and horrible, really, operations like amputations and things like that. So he went back to his father and said, no, I don't want to do medicine. So the best option at that time is to study theology, because the vicars were very well respected in England at that time, Victorian time. So he studied in Oxford and Cambridge and graduated, but he didn't believe whatever he studied during theology course. Then there was a big exploratory mission called the Beagle, and this ship traveled from England to South America, and Darwin went as a biologist to record some findings, really. He was a good observer, and he went to the Galapagos Islands. And in the Galapagos Islands, he found that there is a group of birds called the finch, and the peak of the finch is different in different islands depending on the type of food available. So he started to say that the nature selects what is suitable for her to continue on the same island. And he started to talk about creation or life starting by natural selection. He was really propagating a very old theory of the Greek who believed in evolution. Evolution meaning a simple structure becomes more complicated over time. So he spent 5 years in the Beagle, And he came back and he wrote 2 books. The first one is The Origin of Species. And that book, as I said, speaks about the peaks of the finches, as you can see on the screen. They are different structure of the peak depending on the size of the seeds that they can pick and eat. And he said that the nature selects what is suitable to survive in these circumstances. So Darwin, in his journey, was influenced by another very important person called Charles Lyell. Charles Lyell was a lawyer, but he was very interested in geology. And the idea of millions of years started in geology. And this is something called uniformitarian. What is the meaning of uniformitarian? I'll put the definition later on, but let me just explain it. Uniformitarian meaning the same changes that we see at present, they assume it happened in the past. And they don't accept Noah's flood as a big geological catastrophic event. They believe if the rate of deposition of layers, say 5 centimeters in a year, for example. So if the mountain is 1 mile, that means it is formed over millions of years to form all these layers. They believe that this is a steady rate of deposition and erosion. They don't accept the catastrophic events. Like you remember when the tsunami happened in Southeast Asia, there was an island which moved within hours because it depends on the force that broke the tectonic plates, the crust of the earth. So it's not a matter of time, it is a matter of the force that caused things to change. So Charles Lyell wrote 3 books about principles of geology. And as I said, it is the uniformitarian geology. And Charles Lyell affected the thinking of Charles Darwin. And he said, if the history of the earth involves millions of years, that means small changes that happened and acclimatization to different environment can create different species in one particular area. So that's the thinking of Darwin. Darwin didn't know at all anything about genetics because genetics came after that by Mendel. So he doesn't understand all what we will be talking about genetics tonight. And he just looked at the morphology. Morphology meaning the outside appearance of creatures and animals. So he doesn't understand the genetics of all of that. So he went to this big journey with the idea of there is a millions of years in the history of life on Earth. And the Earth itself, he believes it's millions of years. So let me just explain this about the uniformitarian. You see on the screen the map of the world with Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia, and North America and South America. North America and South America and Europe and Africa, you can put them together really. And this is called the tectonic plates, and they can fit into each other. That's true. So and all these tectonic plates are moving all the time. But it is a very slow movement that we cannot feel it really. So let us say, for example, if we move 5 centimeters in a year, for example, and if you measure the distance between North America and Europe, and this is about 5,000 miles, if we are moving 5 centimeters a year from each other, that means it takes millions of years for this to separate, okay? That's the uniformitarian way of thinking. But actually the Earth was a one continent coming together. All these tectonic plates are very near to each other in the beginning when God created the Earth. And that's called the Pangea. And even the secular geologists who don't believe the Bible, they believe there is this Pangea. That's the one united sort of continent. So there was no Australia at the time of Noah. The component of Australia was amalgamated and nearby the other components, as you can see. So we believe that the tectonic plates of the earth was divided during Noah's flood, and that is the catastrophic geology. That is opposite the uniformitarian geology, that they believe that everything happened slowly over millions of years till we come to the modern life. So I hope this idea of uniformitarian and catastrophic geology will be clear in our mind, because it will help us a lot when we study Noah's flood. Okay? So let me just give you more about the people who thought about this uniformitarian, and that started by another person called James Hutton. James Hutton was a British person, and he wrote that the past history of our globe must be explained by, listen to this. So he's talking about the past history, things that he never saw himself. But he's saying the past history should be explained by what is happening now. We shouldn't understand anything in the world based on something like the catastrophic geology of the flood. He said, but surely general deluge, that's flood, form no part of the theory of the earth. To understand the structure of the earth, we shouldn't put the idea of the Noah's flood in the equation at all. So he came to the conclusion that the purpose of the earth is to sustain life and vegetables. So he cannot accept the idea of judgment of God and the destruction of the flood. So he came to this principle, which is the present is the key to the past. So what this principle means is very important really to understand this. He say all the changes that we see in geology at present, like the tectonic plates moving very slowly. The present is the key to the past. This movement, which is very slow, that we can observe now, will be the basis of understanding what happened in the past. So as I said, there was all the Pangea, all the continents were together. Now they are separating. So we measure the distance between the continents and then see the rate of change that we observe now and calculate the time that it needed for these continents to move. So that means he ignored completely the catastrophic geology. And what's happening in universities now, they are only teaching the uniformitarian geology. That is, بالعربي اسمه الوتيرة الواحدة. That is the same rate of change is constant. And that's a big assumption because they refuse the Noah's flood. That's why they believe that it is millions of years of history. Let me show you this film, which will explain the difference between the uniformitarian and the catastrophic. Let us listen to the film.
When we look at geological features around the world, many of them are radically different from anything being formed today, like thick mud layers over continents, or coal seams covering entire states, or fossil graveyards, or frozen mammoths, or miles of underground cave passages, or thick ice sheets moving over continents, or craters of supervolcanoes, or canyons cut thousands of feet deep. It looks like the present is not the best way to explain the geological features of the past. The Bible, however, offers another way to explain features from the past. Noah's flood was a global judgment, a violent catastrophe upon the earth. Based on this truth revealed in God's Word, scientists are developing a series of models to explain how the flood and its aftermath could have shaped the world today. In the course of the flood, erosion washed away mountains of rock in some places, while miles of mud and sand were piled up in others. The earth's crust was thickened in some places and thinned in others. Like jostled ice cubes sink and bob up to their proper level in the water, some sections of land sank after the flood, while other sections rose. Supervolcanoes and superquakes rocked the world after the flood. As the centuries passed, the catastrophes became rarer and smaller. Modern earthquakes and volcanoes are dim leftovers from this violent period of Earth history. Warm oceans after the flood produced violent weather, possibly even hypercanes, huge hurricanes like the Great Red Spot on Jupiter, which may have persisted for centuries. High rainfall after the flood filled enormous lakes, eroded large canyons, and carved cave systems. As animals left the ark, multiplied, and spread over the earth, many of them were preserved as fossils. Some were buried in ash and mud. Some were preserved by unique chemical conditions, and others were frozen. Truly the present, not the way things were in the past. Instead, the Bible is the key to help us understand geological features around the world.
Okay, so this film was showing that the changes that we see nowadays are completely different from the massive changes that happened in the past and formed these mountains and these fossils. That's the summary of this film. So what we learned now is very important really to understand. The idea of millions of years started in geology because they believe in the uniformitarian way. Uniformitarian meaning the same rate of change that we observe nowadays, that's exactly what happened in the past. That's a big assumption because they refuse the catastrophic events of the flood of Noah. When we consider the catastrophic events, the millions of years will not be necessary at all, because as I said, when you looked at the distribution of the continents, it doesn't take millions of years to separate. It depends on the force that caused these tectonic plates to break. So that's really very, very important in the thinking of Darwin. He went to the Galapagos Islands in the Beagle journey, and he had this idea of there is millions of years in the history of the Earth, and if there are small changes happening depending on the type of food in each island, and that's changed the peak of the bird, that means life can develop from small creatures over millions of years and keep changing. So the principle of geology is the present is the key to the past. And that is the big problem, our big debate. We think that the present is not the key to the past. The past is recorded in the Bible, and the Noah's flood explains lots of things. Being to attempt to explain the former changes of the Earth's surface by reference to the causes now operating. That means we will explain the history of the Earth and the changes and the mountains and the continents and the fossils by the process that we can observe now. That's not enough, because lots of things happened in the past which is affecting what we see nowadays. I keep repeating this because this is really essential in understanding the history of the Bible. So evolution, as we said before, has 3 cycles. Biological evolution, that's change in the living creatures, birds, humans, and everything. And geological evolution, that's formation of the mountains and the canyons, like the Grand Canyon, الأخدود العظيم, like the fossils in these layers. And I visited this place in a mission, and I spent a week with great scientists explaining these layers. We'll come to geology in detail when we talk about Noah's flood, but that's later on. And then the 3rd cycle is cosmological evolution. Evolution that they believe happened in the formation of the galaxies and the stars and the planets. And obviously, this is the Big Bang Theory. So there are 3 cycles of evolution. It's not only in biology. It actually, the idea of millions of years started in geology first, the layers of the Earth, and then expanded to biology and this cosmological evolution, that is the stars, galaxies, and planets. So Charles Lyell said we have to examine the the world as if the scripture were not in existence. So he said, I would like to liberate science from the writings of Moses. I like to liberate science from the book of Genesis. So if you take the history in Genesis and take it away completely, you will understand the world differently. But if you believe in Noah's flood and the effects of the flood, you will see the world in a different way completely, and the age of the earth will be completely different. So he said in few words, I want to free the science of geology from Moses. So that is really the bottom line. Forget about what the Bible says about the flood and the effects of the flood. And remember, the flood lasted for 371 days. It's a long, long time. And there was the fountains of the deeps came out, were broken, and the rain came from heaven. So all these changes were dramatic and catastrophic, lots of tsunami and lots of volcanic eruptions, and it was really catastrophic. So volcanic eruptions and all of that. Silence God's eyewitness testimony. That is the statement really. Charles Lyell wanted to silence God's testimony. He wants to stop what God had said. He wants to say that what is written in the Bible is irrelevant. Don't look at it at all. It is not true. And this is the basis of the problem. Because if we understand the geology of the flood, we'll be able to understand the formation of the mountains, formation of the continents, formation of the fossils. We can understand the history of dinosaurs. We can understand the things that were extinct. It's very important. So this slide is very important that you are seeing now. Uniformitarian naturalism. We need really to study this very, very carefully, please. And really, I'd like you to memorize that by heart, because that will help us to understand the difference between the uniformitarian and the catastrophic geology. If we understand this fact, things will be very easy to understand after that. So what are the assumptions of uniformitarian naturalism? Number one, nature is all that exists. There is no God. It's only matter. And they have a problem with this actually, because it is either God eternal or matter eternal. Eternal, that means has no beginning. Matter is decaying, so it has a beginning. So everybody knows that matter is changing. So that means it has a beginning. We cannot say it is eternal at all. Number two, everything can and indeed must be explained by three things. By time, give me millions of years. By chance, and that is random chance that can just happen. And by the laws of nature working on the matter. So actually, when there are laws of nature, that means there is a lawgiver. That means there is a God. But they don't see that at all. So what they are saying is nature is all what exists. There is nothing called God. It's all nature. And then they say that everything can and indeed must be explained by three things: time, chance, laws of nature. This is the things to explain everything. And they say another thing, that the rate of change that happened in the past is the same as the rate that we see nowadays. This slide, when I send it to Basim, please study it again and again and again and try to memorize the components of this slide, because that's very important. Then he came back, Charles Darwin, from his journey, which lasted for 5 years. And he was a good observant. So he drew the creature that he had seen. Mainly he was working on the finch. But remember, the different types of finch, they are all finch. None of them became another creature. They are all the same group with different beak length and beak shape and all of that. Yes, we see that. But at the same time, none of them became a cat. One of them didn't become a raven. None of them became a dove. They are finches, and these are finches with different shapes. Yes, we see that. They are different, but they are the same group. And remember, in the creation model, God created according to its kind, according to its kind, according to its kind. And as we said, the kind is most probably the family. So God created the head of the family with genetic material to differentiate into different types. Okay? So that is the origin. He came back and he wrote this book called Origin of Species, how the different species started to develop. And he started to say that by natural selection, the species who can live in a special atmosphere and circumstances, which are strong enough, they can survive. The weak ones will die. So that's what brought the idea of survival of the fittest. So they will survive if they are fit and able to eat in the environment on the island that they are found themselves upon. Then after some time, he wrote another book. What's happening? It's not moving here. Yeah. Then he wrote a book called The Descent of Man. That was written in 1859. And he started to say descent of man by natural selection. And that was the first book he started to say we all came from common ancestor, and from this common ancestor, branches became the apes and branches became the humans. And he classified the humans in different groups. So he considered the Caucasians as the top, the more civilized and more advanced. And he considered the original Australians as more like apes. And because of that, people, unfortunately, traveled from England, went to Australia and killed some of the original Australians and used them as a specimen to dissect their body and to be able to see if we developed from apes. So he started to say in the Origin of Species, thus from the war of nature, because the survival of the fittest, as I said. So there is a war between all the creatures on earth fighting for survival. The one who can accommodate to the circumstances and life can survive. So he said, from the war of nature, from famine and death, because there is death and there is scarcity food in one area, so the animals travel to another area to get more food. He said the most exalted object which we are capable of conceiving, namely the production of a higher animals, directly flows. That means from simple animals to higher animals, we have to go through death, cycles of life and death, areas of famine, there is no enough food, so the animals travel from one place to another. And the fittest will survive and start to have new generations. The weak will die and we get rid of it. That's how he saw the cycles of life. But as I said, all the finches, yes, they are different from each other, but they are all finches. None of them become a dove. They are the same family. And in the biblical model, when God created the head of the family, he put the genetic material that can differentiate into different types of animals within the same group. Look at Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan is an atheist, and he wrote these words: the secrets of evolution are death and time. As is, death is a creative power, and time is not a creative power. But he said, the cycle is, there is life, they can't explain how life started, nobody can, except if you believe God created life. So they say, it is the secret of evolution. The meaning of evolution that we are talking about is simple creatures coming to a higher creatures. That's what we mean by evolution. But evolution meaning a change within a kind, yes, we accept that. But that's not evolution, that's change within a kind. You remember the vertical evolution that I showed you last lecture? from amoeba to fish to amphibians to reptiles to birds to humans to animals then humans, that's impossible because you need to add information from one stage to another. So the amoeba, the single cell, doesn't have a code for a scale or a lung or an eye. She doesn't have the coding system that can produce an eye or allow her to breathe like a fish underwater. She doesn't have a mouth. She doesn't have a stomach. So there is no coding system to produce these creatures. So that's the vertical evolution, which is really scientifically impossible. But we believe if they say evolution as a change within a kind, yes, but we call that adaptation. I don't want to use the evolution for the horizontal change because horizontal change means it is the same kind, and that goes well with the creation model. So let us see what Carl Sagan said. And when you have this slide, please read it slowly and think about it. Think about it. Because what we are doing here, we are changing a mindset. It's not just adding information. We are changing the way of thinking altogether. So he said the secrets of evolution are death and time. Do you think death and time can create anything? Cannot. It cannot. Death cannot create anything at all. Time cannot create anything. So the mechanism of evolution depending on death and time is really in itself non-scientific. But let us see what he said. The death of enormous numbers of life forms that are imperfectly adapted to the environment. That means all the creatures that cannot really have the right peak to pick up the grains to eat will die. So because they are imperfectly adapted, they are not suitable to live in this particular situation. So he said, the secrets of evolution are death and time. The death of enormous numbers of life forms that were imperfectly adapted to the environment. And time for a long succession of small mutations that were by accident adaptive. Let us understand these words. He said, the imperfect animals died, and then we need long time for small mutations, and we'll study mutation meaning copying mistakes. It is not a jump in the future to build something. It is a step backward. So he's saying that long succession of small mutations, small changes, small, by accident, by chance, by mere chance, are allowing these animals to adapt to the new environment. Time for the slow accumulation of patterns of favorable mutation. This is really non-scientific. This mechanism cannot really create life or sustain life or develop life or allow life to go from simple to the complex. Any questions? You can stop me and ask. The other thing is that's very clear what I have said because that's really, really important. No questions? I'll continue then.
No, excuse me, doctor. I have a question regarding the idea of the thing that like the incapable animals would die if they can't adapt.
Yes.
Is this like true in a way? Like would they, if they don't have the specific beak or height or whatever to reach their food, how would they survive?
Yeah, they say that the nature selects the animal that can live in special circumstances. So if they can't have the right peak or the right height, I said they will die. So if they die, they don't have descendants. And that means this branch will end. And who is able to survive? The one with the right peak to eat from this area. But if you take this one to another island which has no seeds that he can eat, they will die as well. So all the idea is, depending on the circumstances, the animal can survive or not. That's called adaptation. Adaptation is not a creative power. We believe in adaptations as Christians. Animals do adapt, but the reason they adapt is because of the genetic material that God put in the family. So in the finch family, God put genetic material to form this beak, which is small or big or thin or thin. All of that is in the genetic pool of finch, which is created by God, because this genetic material cannot come from nature. How they are distributed? Yes, depending on if they can live and eat in this special environment. So adaptation or natural selection is true, and we believe in them, but they are not creative power. They are distributing power. Any question? Is that clear?
Yeah, I think yes. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. It will get clearer when I give you another example in a minute, okay? But that's a good question, really, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Okay, let us move on. Right. So in the evolution model, they believe that we have millions of years of death and disease and suffering. And as a result of natural selection and mutation, we will come from these elementary creatures to the man and woman at the top. Actually, there is no mechanism to move us from this point here with primitive animals to a complicated human being. There is no mechanism to do that. Death cannot create. Natural selection is not a creative power. So in evolution, they believe that death was there from the beginning, and their beginning is millions of years. In the Christian faith, we believe that God created supernaturally in 6 days and he rested on the seventh, and he created according to its kind, and then we moved around the earth and we have different shapes and different structure and all of that, but we are all human. The animals, God created them according to its kind. The birds according to its kind. The plants according to its kind. So that's very important to understand the biblical model, to compare it with the evolution. That's why the people who try to say God used the evolution to create is not biblical at all, because that means God used death as a mechanism of life, which is illogical. Number two, remember, death entered the world as a result of the sin of man, and man came at the top, as you can see. So there was no death before Adam's fall in sin. So you cannot have death to form all these animals to come to humans. So there is a major problem of people trying to mix the idea of Darwinian evolution into the Bible. This is a major problem. And unfortunately, lots of Christians try to say God used evolution. And that's what we call theistic evolution. Theo means God, obviously Bassem will explain that to you, and evolution is evolution, theistic evolution. That's obviously completely unbiblical and unscientific. Right, you see this photo and it is very, very well known in all universities and all biology books and all museums. And it's called March of Progress, and starts with an animal like this, like the ape or monkeys, and the actually this picture was drawn by an artist called Zollinger in 1965, and it is the writings in the article was completely opposite to what is shown in this picture, but it became so famous. And even the evolutionists don't like it because they don't believe we came in a very straight line like this. They believe we came as a tree, branches and rebranching and rebranching. So this is a completely non-scientific photo, but it is became so famous. You see it in all biology books, most of the museums, and you see it on the t-shirts And it is really sad when I see this picture. I remember once I was in a shop in here in Glasgow area, a car shop and things, and a little boy came in with a T-shirt with this picture printed on the T-shirt. I was really saddened because we are teaching this little boy that you came from monkeys. So if he behaved like a monkey, we shouldn't really complain because this is his grandparents. But we are not. We are made on the image of God. So the evolution theory has major, major problems. The other problem is there is no intermediate between all these different stages. Because if you are moving from this to this, we should have a mixture of both in the middle because we are developing. So that is really not real at all. So this picture is very dangerous and is very famous. Let us see this scientist, Bernard Wood, who is a professor of human origins in George Washington University, and he wrote these words. There is a popular image of human evolution that you will find all over the place. That is the picture I showed you earlier. There is a popular image of human evolution that you will find all over the place. On the left of the picture, there is an ape. On the right is a man. And between the two is succession of figures that become ever more like humans, like the 14 or 15 stages that I showed you earlier. Our progress from ape to human looks so smooth, so tidy. He believes that we came from apes, this man, this professor. But he say in the picture, it looks like it is very smooth and very tidy. It's much boggling image that even the experts are loath to let it go. But it is an illusion. So he's saying, these pictures give the impression that the change was very smooth between one stage and the other. And he said this is really causing a problem to the scientist. But he said this picture is an illusion. It is not reality. There is no fossils to prove it. There is no intermediate in between, and it is wrong. But it became so famous, so popular, that it conveyed the message to the young and old to tell them, you just came from apes, which is very, very sad. Right, I'll discuss these two items and we'll take 5 minutes break because we have been working for about an hour now. So I'll give you these two things and I'd like you to think carefully about them and we'll study them in detail in the next hour. What are the supposed mechanisms of evolution? How the evolution happens? There are two pillars. One is natural selection. The other one is random mutations. Remember these two. These are the two pillars that evolution is built upon. Natural selection, بالعربي الانتخاب الطبيعي, that means the nature selects the animal that can survive in it. And then random mutation, that is changes. Mutation is a copying mistakes on the genes. So they think that random changes and natural selection, selecting what is suitable for life, can allow life to develop from simple to complex. So these are the two pillars of evolution, okay? By evolution, I mean the vertical evolution from molecule to man, okay? And this is a massive problem, as I said, because if I give you all the molecules that form a cell, you cannot form a cell in the laboratory because life comes from life. You have to start by a living cell. So natural selection is not a creative power. Random mutations cannot form anything organized because it's random, it's by chance. So it cannot do anything at all. Right, we'll stop for 5 minutes and be back again and we will discuss those in detail. Any questions before we have our break? No questions? I'll ask you a question then. No, I'll leave you to have a rest for 5 minutes, okay? So 5 minutes, and we'll come 5 past 8 in your time, yeah? Agreed? Yes?
Yes, okay.
No
Yes,
response.
okay.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay.
I like interaction. I like people to respond to my questions, okay? Right, so we'll have just 5 minutes break, and then we'll come 5 past 8, okay?
ممكن اسال
See you
سؤال
there.
بعد البريك على طول قبل ما نبتدي
طبعا.
بس في الانتخاب الطبيعي،
طبعا.
يعني على الجزء اللي فات بس بعد البريك.
طب اوكي،
اوكي
حضر
ميرسي.
السؤال ونبتدي بيه. اوكي
ميرسي.
ثانك يو.
ميرسي.
اوكي باي باي.
باسم recording.
ماجد
سوري يا ماجد، اهلا.
لا ما فيش مشكله. هو انا هسال بالعربي بس لانه هيبقى صعب عليا اسال السؤال ده بالانجلش. دلوقتي انا عندي معضله في حاجه. احنا اتكلمنا بخصوص عمر الارض. دلوقتي احنا عمر الارض هم بيقدروه بحسب بعد الثوره العلميه وتطور علم قياس الاشعاع، ولما قاسوا رصاص في اليورانيوم ابتدوا يقولوا ان عمر الارض 4.5 مليار سنه بناء على القياسات اللي اتقاست بعد الثوره العلميه، وبيعتبروا ان اللي قبل كده ده كله يعني كانت عصور ظلاميه، ومن ضمنها اللي مكتوب في الكتاب المقدس. احنا ختمنا المحاضره بتاعتنا الاسبوع اللي فات بحسبه ان عمر الارض عده الاف من السنين. يعني حضرتك قلت انه بحسب الحسابات اللي هي من ميلاد ادم لوفاته وما تلاه للطوفان وما بعده بنتكلم في عده الاف. لما باجي اتكلم انا دلوقتي في الكلام ده مع حد بيعتبر ان انا بتكلم هيروغليفي، يعني بيقول لي طب وانا اودي فين الدراسات اللي موجوده دي؟ في وسط الكلام ده كمان في حقبه زمنيه مش واضحه، مش موجوده خالص. هي الفتره بتاعت خلق الملائكه. يعني الفتره دي الكتاب المقدس ما بيكلمناش عنها خالص. اتخلقت امتى الملائكه؟ هل في اليوم الاول مع الخليقه العاديه لما الله خلق النور، ولا دول كانوا موجودين من قبل كده؟ لانه من الواضح انه لما الله خلق الانسان انه كان في كائن موجود من قبله حاول يجربه ويهلكه ويسقطه ونجح في كده اللي هو ابليس. وفي رؤية 12 كان بيتكلم معانا عن انه في حرب دارت ما بين ميخائيل وملائكته مع التنين، وحارب التنين وملائكته وكسبهم وطرح التنين العظيم اللي هو الحية القديمة المدعو ابليس والشيطان الى الارض وطرحت معه ملائكته. ففي حصلت معركه، وكان في حاجه في الاجواء بتحصل، مش عارفين زمنيا هي فين بالظبط. فهل دي ممكن تكون في الفتره اللي بنتكلم عنها او اللي بيتكلموا عنها كملايين السنين، ولا دي علشان ان هي معركه روحيه ملهاش علاقه بعمر الارض؟ يعني احنا المفروض ان احنا بنتكلم على انه دراستنا على انه مفيش تعارض ما بين العلم وما بين الكتاب. فانا دلوقتي لما حد باجي اتكلم معاه في فكره انه احنا بنتكلم في عده الاف من السنين، وهو بيحكي لي في 4.5 مليار سنه، ويقول لي عندي دلائل، انا دلوقتي بقى يعني طب انا احكي ازاي؟ اتكلم في ايه؟
اقول لك هجاوب بالعربي وبعدين هلخصه بالانجليزي. اوكي
ميرسي، شكرا.
بص، اللي بيقول لك 4.6 بليون سنه ده مبنيه على افتراضات عاليه جدا، وهذه الافتراضات فيها مشاكل ضخمه. خليني احكي لك الفكره من الاول.
اوكي.
هم قالوا ان السنجولاريتي، بيتكلم عن البيج بانج،
نعم.
بيقولوا ان السنجولاريتي دي ظهرت من حوالي 13.8 بليون سنه.
اوكي.
أول ما ابتدوا قالوا 15 بليون سنة، وبعدين عدلوها ل 13.8 بليون سنة، عشان أوريك بس الفرق في الحسابات شكله إيه.
أيوة.
تمام؟ نمرة 2، السنجولاريتي دي اللي هي عبارة عن نقطة صغيرة فيها الطاقة والمادة بس. أوكي؟ مفيش لا الزمن ولا المسافات ولا السبيس.
اوكي.
فتكون النتيجة إنه بتوع علماء الفيزياء بيقولوا إنه لما تكون المادة والطاقة متركزة في نقطة صغيرة بهذا الشكل، قوانين الطبيعة ما تشتغلش.
اوكي.
واحنا حتى البيج بانج مش عارفين ازاي ابتدت، بيقول لك محتاجه معجزه. ده الناس ملحدين اللي بيقولوا الكلام ده، ولما نتكلم على البيج بانج هديك كل التفصيلات دي بالتفصيل الشديد وبالاقوال بتاعتهم بالتفصيل. اوكي. فالبدايه فيها افتراض عالي قوي، هي مش حسابات مظبوطه بتاع 3 بتاعت 4.6. ده افتراض. تعالى مشكله تاني، لما يحصل هو البيج بانج عباره عن تمدد، تمام، مش فرقعه، تمدد للماده.
ايوه.
قال لك ايه؟ مش عارفين ازاي الماده اللي عماله تبقى غازات بتتمدد ازاي اتركزت واتجمعت.
اوكي.
تمام. الغازات هتطلع لبره. ايه اللي خلى الكتله اللي تخليها تنكمش وتعمل النجوم وتعمل المجرات؟
ايوه.
ستيفن هوكينز اللي هو كان استاذ الفيزياء في اوكسفورد ومات قريب.
تمام.
طبعا هو ده كان ملحد ما بيؤمنش بالله. بيقول لك احنا مش عارفين ازاي المجرات دي اتكونت، فاحنا مش عارفين الشمس اتكونت ازاي. فلما يقول لي الارض اتكونت من الشمس اللي هو مش عارف اتكونت ازاي، محتاج احط علامه استفهام كبيره.
تمام.
مش كده برضه؟
تمام. انا مصدق في البدايه الكتابيه انها احسن طبعا واكتر اقناعا.
انا مش عايزك تصدق في الكتاب، انا عايزك تناقش نظريه النشوء والارتقاء بتاعه الايفوليوشن بتاعه الكون اللي هي البيج بانج، وتبين فيها انها مش عندها المعلومات العلميه الدقيقه خالص بالمره. هم عندهم مشكله علميه، انا بكلمك علم دلوقتي مش بالكتاب.
تمام.
فبالعلم عندهم مشكله، هي مش هم اللي عندهم العلم وعندهم الارقام الصحيحه. الارقام بتاعتهم مبنيه على افتراضات، والافتراضات فيها مشاكل للصبح علميا. فلما يقول لي الارض 4.6 بليون سنه ازاي قاسها، هتلاقي لا طبعا الكربون ما يقيس حاجه زي كده، البوتاسيوم ارجون ممكن يقيس حاجه بهذا العمر، لكن هل ما كانش في اي كميه بوتاسيوم في الكميه الاولانيه عامله كونتامينيشن تخليني اتوقع انه ده يكون عمر طويل وهو عمره قصير؟ عندنا طبعا محاضره كامله عن تحديد الاعمار بالمواد المشعه. فاللي بيقول لك كده خليه هو يقول لك العلم اللي عنده بقى. العلم اللي عنده هتبص تلاقي فيه مشاكل للصبح. خد بالك يا ماجد، هتلاقي مشاكل للصبح، مشاكل علميه ضخمه، وهنتكلم عن البيج بانج بالتفصيل وهديك المشاكل دي هي واحده ورا الثانيه. انت اتكلمت عن خلق الملائكه، ودي شغلانه كبيره قوي، لانه الكتاب المقدس ما شرحهاش بالتفصيل، لكن كل اللي نعرفه من سفر ايوب انه لما الله خلق الانسان ان ملائكه الله سبحت، فهو اتخلق قبل اليوم السادس. لكن سقوط الشيطان حصل بعد اليوم السابع، ده شيء مهم جدا لازم نفهمه. لأنه الرب في بعد نهاية اليوم السادس، اليوم السابع، قال إن كل ما عمله إذا هو حسن جدا. فمعنى كده الشيطان ما كانش سقط. ولما تقرا في حزقيال 27 اللي هو الفصل اللي بيفسر على انه سقوط الشيطان، بيتكلم عن ملك سور، لكن اغلب المفسرين بيقولوا دي صوره لسقوط الشيطان. بيقول له انك كنت كاملا في جنه عدن. ففي بدايه المده في جنه عدن كان الشيطان كامل، وبعد كده سقط، وبعدين جرب ادم وحواء في الجنه عدن. تمام؟
المرحله دي
لازم
بقى
نعرف
يعني وقت قد ايه؟ ما دي ممكن بتكون وقت طويل ما بين يعني
لا اقول لك مش
اوكي.
اقول لك ليه انها مش طويل يا ماجد. ليه؟ علشان خاطر انه ادم وحواء في الجنه الرب قال لهم اثمروا واكسروا واملأوا الارض. هم ما خلفوش وهم في الجنه.
مظبوط.
يعني معنى كده ما قعدوش فتره طويله في الجنه.
اوكي.
ودي الفتره اللي حصل فيها التجربه واتطردوا من الجنه، ودي الفتره اللي سقط فيها الشيطان بعد الخليقه الكامله.
اوكي. اوكي.
تمام؟
تمام.
فدي كلها استنتاجات مبنيه على احداث حصلت. الكتاب المقدس ما بيديناش تاريخ سقوط الشيطان، لكن بيدينا وصف ليه في جنة عدن كان كامل. يبقى معنى كده انه كان موجود في ادم وحواء، لان ادم وحواء ربنا غرس الجنة وخلق ادم، فدول كلهم في وقت واحد. وبعدين جه السقوط، فما تقدرش تحط ملايين السنين من خلق ادم وبعدين سقوط ادم. ما تقدرش تحط ملايين السنين هنا، معناها ان ادم وحواء عاشوا ملايين السنين قبل السقوط. ده مش طبيعي.
ده مش حقيقي.
ادم مش حقيقي، لان ادم مات 930 سنه من تاريخ خلقه.
بالظبط.
من تاريخ الخلق بتاعه.
بالظبط.
اوكي. فشفت انت طبعا سالت سؤال مركب جدا يعني عن عمر الارض وبعدين سقوط الشيطان والملائكه.
باعتبارها حقبه زمنيه، مش علشان خاطر ان هم حاجتين منفصلين. انا بتكلم انه يعني لعله يكون دوت حصل في فتره قبل ما يجي خالص ادم. يعني ما احنا خلاص متفقين على 930 سنه بتوع ادم، لكن ربما يكون في فتره زمنيه كانت موجوده طويله قبل ما يجي ادم.
سقوط الشيطان هيحددها سقوط الشيطان، مش كده؟
بالظبط.
سقوط الشيطان حصل بعد ادم.
اوكي.
كده يبقى اتحسمت المده، مش كده برضو؟
ده اللي ما كانش واضح عندي، يعني هو ده كده
انا عارف الحته دي على فكره مش واضحه عند ناس كتيره يا ماجد، كتيره قوي 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 قوي. اغلب العالم. فكويس انك انت اثرتها.
طيب
في حد عايزنا نقول الكلام ده بالانجليزي بسرعه؟ في حد ما فهمش؟
No, the question. So when were the angels created? When were the angels created?
Right. I'll explain that in English then.
Okay. شكرا يا دكتور.
العفو حبيبي. The situation is like this. The angels were created before Adam. And we know that from the book of Job. When Adam was created, the angels of God rejoiced. So they were created before Adam. Then when did Satan fell in disobedience? That happened after the creation of Adam, because on day 6 the Lord saw what he has done and it was very good. That means there was no disorder, there was no fallen Satan. And when you read in Ezekiel 27 the description of the fall of Satan, he say you were perfect in the Garden of Eden. So he was perfect in the Garden of Eden, and then he fell in sin and disobeyed God and became Satan. So we believe that the period between the creation of Adam and the fall of Satan wasn't that long. The Bible doesn't specify months or years or whatever, but what we know, we cannot put millions of years between the fall of Satan and the fall of Adam, because Adam died 930 years from his creation. You see the point, Joyce? Or
yes, but I still cannot understand the angels. So they were born in the first 5 days. So the angels, they were.
Yeah, the angels, we don't know, because the Bible concentrates on the creation on earth rather than the heavenly bodies or heavenly creatures.
So maybe they always existed.
We don't know which date, but before the creation of Adam. Because
so
when
what about
Adam,
the other galaxies, the Milky Way and other, they were created before the Earth?
No, they created in day 4, according to the Bible. because God created the sun, the moon, and he made the stars also.
So Jupiter,
So
Mars.
all of that, yes, yes. Jupiter and Mars, they are planets. They are part of the planets like Earth. So all the galaxies and the sun and all the what rotates around it were created in day 4. And that's completely different from the Big Bang Theory. And as I said, the Big Bang Theory has major scientific problems. As I said, this is complete change of mind. It is. It is, because all what we learned, Joyce, is the Big Bang Theory and evolution. That's all what we taught in the schools and universities and colleges, and what we see in the media and everything.
So if I understand well, before day 1, there was nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing before day 1.
Yes. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Nothing before the beginning. Beginning is the beginning. Right? Which is very difficult for us to comprehend and understand.
Yes,
but in the beginning, God created the heavens and earth, and he started to explain what happened in each day. Right?
Because only the earth and all the stars and the galaxies and all this stuff were created before, like with the angels.
No, you have to separate between angels and the stars. These are two different things. Angels are creatures with a spirit of God. But stars are stars. They are gases, and they are material. So these happened, these were created on the day 4. You read day 4 in chapter 1 in Genesis, and he made the big light and the small light for the day and the night and for seasons and years. And then he made the stars also. That's all what's mentioned about the stars. He made the stars also. And for Moses to understand the difference between a star and a planet is really amazing, because he didn't have the information that we have nowadays. So the Big Bang Theory, which gives these billions of years history, is really having major problems, because we don't know how the sun was formed according to the Big Bang. And if they say the earth came from the sun, and we don't know how the sun was formed, so I can't accept that the earth came from the sun.
Because even at church we were taught like earth was now, but before there was something else before earth, or before day 1 there was something.
We learned, Joyce, we learned lots of wrong things in the church.
Okay, so, yeah. Okay.
What I'm offering you here is a biblical document and scientific document, and make up your mind. Okay. But we are not repeating what we learned in Sunday schools, because some of what we learned is completely wrong. And Basim will explain that when he starts to talk to you about the structure of the words and all of that, when we have after Christmas time. Yeah. So this is a completely change of mind. And please go back to the lecture, listen to it carefully, look at the slides. I try to give them to Basim as soon as I can the following day. And please put an effort studying these lectures, because that's a complete change of mind. It's not like anything you heard in the school or in the Sunday school or in the church. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
Great. So you're welcome.
Okay.
Right.
Dr.
So back again. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I have a question. Why can't we say that angels were created like long ago before the creation in general? Because the creation is talking only about the material creation, and the angels are spiritual creatures. So why don't we say that they were created long before that?
Right, because there is no evidence. That's simply the answer. The Bible starts by saying in the beginning, and that's when the time starts. Before that, there is no time. In the beginning, that's time. God created heavens and earth. And he started to concentrate on earthly structures not the heavenly structures. But that's the start. Here is the beginning. And he didn't give us more information about angels, actually. We don't have lots of information. But what we have is, in the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. And then he described the earth and started to talk about light and all of that. So he concentrated on the earth part of the equation. And that's why the Apostle Paul said, I know in part, but there I will know as I have been known. Because there are lots of things that the Bible did not explain, and I cannot give you second guess because it will be wrong. All what I can say is angels before humans, that's for sure. Because in Job, we read that when God created man, the angels of God rejoiced. So they must be before him. But man was created in day 6. The Bible doesn't tell us when the angels were created. But we know about the fall of Satan. It didn't happen earlier on before Adam. It happened after the Garden of Eden, after day 6 and after day 7, because there was rest in day 7. So there was no disturbance. So we know it is after day 7. And from that, you can build all the structure all together. Yeah.
Yeah.
هو في ايوب 38 كده آية كانت الله بيقول كده لما أجاب الرب أيوب من العاصفة قال له أين كنت حين أسست أنا الأرض عندما ترنمت كواكب الصبح معا. والمقصود بكواكب الصبح هنا الملائكة، وده قول صريح كده بيثبت لنا ان الملائكة كانت موجودة قبل خلق الإنسان. يعني بس انما امتى، هل من النور مثلا بتاع اليوم الاول ولا لا، يعني مش عارف. بس
انا
هو
عارف ما اقدرش افتي يا مان، ما اقدرش.
يس.
كل اللي اقدر اقوله لك اللي انت قريته ده بالظبط، بس ما اقدرش اضيف عليه اي حاجه تاني لان الكتاب ما قاليش. فما دام ما قاليش انا هعرف منين؟ اوكي بس اهم حاجه نفهم سقوط الشيطان انه حصل بعد اليوم السابع. ده هيريحنا كتير، او ده يقضي على الجاب ثيوري بالكامل اللي هي فجوه بين عدد 1 و2. طبعا في حاجات كتيره تقضي عليها يعني. اوكي دي اسئله رائعه وانا سعيد جدا بهذا الحوار، ومن فضلكم قدموا لي اسئله. انا طبعا عايز اديكم معلومات وبتاع لكن بحب الاسئله اكتر كمان. Okay, shall we continue? Right, the supposed mechanisms of evolution, and by evolution here I am talking about molecule to man, the vertical evolution, not the change within a kind. Okay, there are two things: natural selection and random mutation. So let us take them one by one. We'll have a little lesson in genetics. All right, there are two words: morphology, that means the outside appearance of an animal or a human. Morphology meaning the outside appearance. Then genetic makeup, that is the genetic structure inside the cell that gives the morphology, gives the outside appearance. We get half of the genetic material from the father and half of the genetic material from the mother, and they are combined and form the fetus and form the new creature. Right? Is that understood? Morphology is outside appearance. Genetic makeup is the coding that makes the outside appearance. So we are going to study one character, which is the hair, the length of the hair of the dogs. Of course, genetics are much more complicated than what I am going to explain now. But this is what I am explaining is called Mendelian law, Mendelian law, and it is absolutely true. But obviously genetics is much more complicated than the simple structure that I'm going to discuss with you now. So we will marry a dog and a male and female dogs. So the lady, we put a bow on her head and they fall in love and they're going to get married. And these dogs are medium hair. Medium hair, that means it is the code for short hair and the code for long hair are there. And the combination of short and long makes medium. Okay? So the male is in blue, the female is in red. So when they get married, they will have the first dog, S for short, L for long. So the medium here, meaning S and L, S and L, okay? So it can come an S, red S from the mother, and S from blue S from the father, and they bring SS. That means we have a baby which is short hair. Yes, that's natural. We might have S from the mother and L from the father, and that will give a medium hair. We might have L from the mother, L from the father, and have long hair. So the parents are medium-sized hair. Their offspring are three characters: short, medium, and long. That's explainable by genetics, and there is no problem with that. Okay? We are all happy with this? Let us move on. Let us move this family to a very, very cold area.
Sorry, question. Why isn't there a fourth one? Why isn't there a fourth one?
Yeah, put a fourth one with any structure.
Long hair from the father and short hair from the mother. It will be something else.
Yeah, that's the middle one. That's exactly what you described.
No, it
long
is.
Hair from the...
No, it is. But from the mother, it's opposite of the second one.
Yeah, it will be
the
long.
Same?
Yeah, the same idea. Putting them one before the other doesn't make a difference.
Okay.
It is the combination of the two. It can be long from the mother and short from the father. Fine, yeah.
Okay.
What I'm saying, half coming from the father, coming from the mother. We kept the colors constant just to tell us the story, but you can mix them any way you like in the middle. Yeah? Okay? Right. So we'll have this family of short hair, medium hair, long hair. We'll take them to the very cold climate, very, very cold climate. What will happen? The short hair cannot survive. The medium hair cannot survive. The only one who can survive and tolerate this cold is the long hair. So what we're going to lose here is the short hair and the medium hair. They will die because they cannot acclimatize. They don't have the genetic material to form long hair. So when they die, we make their funeral. So we lost SS, SL. What we are left with is LL, that's the long hair. That's why you find animals with long hair living in the North Pole and in the cold places like Canada, right? So the nature selection actually caused us to lose the S completely. All what we have now is LL. So when they marry LL. So it keeps the long hair in one particular area. So that is the natural selection. The atmosphere, or the conditions allowed the long hair to continue, and it killed the short hair. So that is the natural selection. The area selected the animals that can survive in it. But in actual fact, we lost the S completely. We lost the short hair. So natural selection is not creative. It's actually reducing the amount of information. Let us confirm that again. So this is the family now, SS, SL, LL, right? Let us take them to the very, very hot place, right? Let us see what happened. The long hair cannot tolerate the heat. The medium hair cannot tolerate the heat. Who can survive happily in this very cold weather? The SS, the short hair. So what will happen? Long hair and medium hair will die. We make their funeral. So we lost LL, SL. So we lost L completely from this generation. So what will happen? SS will marry SS, and all the creatures will be short hair, and those are the animals living in very short places. So the full combination now is long hair living in the very cold, short hair living in the very hot, in the medium hair living in the middle. That is natural selection. So as you can see, it didn't create anything. It distributed what is already there. So the natural selection is not a creative power. Is that clear, brothers and sisters? This is obviously simplifying the issue very, very much. The genetics are much, much more complicated. But what I described is called Mendelian law. Mendel, who came with the idea of the genetics and half from the father and half from the mother. And this is absolutely true. But there is something called genetic drift or genetic shift or lots of things. But based on this very simple explanation, you see that the natural selection is not adding information. It's actually concentrating the information in one particular place. So it's not adding information at all. In actual fact, we lose information. So in LL, we lost the S completely. In here, down in SS, we lost the L completely. And in the middle, we have SL, so it can mix again. This SL and SL can mix again and form LL or SS. Are we all in agreement?
Yes.
Any question before? Yes, go ahead. You happy with that?
Yes.
Right. Okay, good. So let us go back to the dogs. Dog kind. Again, as I said, if there are 200 types of dogs, God did not create 200 types of dogs in day 6 when he created the creeping animals. He created the wolf, that's the head of the family, with all the genetic material to differentiate into different types of dogs over hundreds of and thousands of years. So that is the dog, that is the coyote, that is the dingo, that is the collie, that is the bulldog. You see, they are all dogs. None of them is cat. They are in the same family. So none of them is cat or elephant or horse. They are all dogs with different shapes, with different length of hair, with different features in the face. Yes, because all this information is stored in this big one here, the father and the mother of it. And then the poodle, the small, very, very small one at the down there. So what's happening really actually is loss of genetic information. From the big one here, with all the information, we have loss of information to come to the poodle, which has very, very little information. Let me explain that like the jelly beans, right? So we'll think the wolf, which is the head of the family, have a full jar of jelly beans. He has lots and lots of genetic information. The coyote, the jar is less, but still very near to the wolf. The dingo is more or less. The coyote is less and less genetic information. The bulldog is less. The poodle, the one that you put in your handbag, is have very, very little information. But that's different from the cat. You see the point? So this is one family with genetic information at the top, and it is differentiating and infiltrating generation after generation. So let us summarize. Natural selection is a fact. Yeah, we believe in natural selection as Christians because we can see it in our life. We can see it in the laboratory. We can see it. We can have the breeding dogs. Ala fikra, breeding dogs happened over the last 300 years or so, and see how many number of dogs available. So many. And that happened over 300 years. So to have all these variation of creatures within thousands of years is logical and scientific. So natural selection is a fact, but natural selection is not evolution. And that's very important to understand. Because people, when you speak about evolution, say, oh, natural selection and mutation. No, natural selection is not a creative power. It is a distributing power. Natural selection is conservative, not a creative process. It keeps the genetic material in one particular animal that can live in one particular situation. but is not a creative power. I'd like you to digest this information. Please go back and spend some time listening to the lecture again and seeing the slides, which I will send tomorrow, God's willing, to Basim. Read them again. Spend some time absorbing this information, because this is very helpful. And you know that's helpful to communicate the gospel later on. We are not just doing a science lecture here. We are talking about the foundation of Genesis and the creation of God, that God created. And that's very important. Right. Natural selection can explain the survival of the fittest. Yes, because the one with the long hair survived in the cold weather, and one with the short hair survived in the hot weather, but not arrival of the fittest, which is the real question. It doesn't create an animal. It allows the animal with genetic material that is suitable to survive in special atmosphere and circumstances. Okay? Let us just see this, what Richard Dawkins said. And I'd like you to judge that for yourself. He said, natural selection is the blind watchmaker. Look how he described the natural selection. It is blind. Okay. Number one, blind because it does not see ahead. So when natural selection is working, it doesn't see the end product. It does not plan consequences. That means natural selection happened and it doesn't see the next step, the consequences of selecting this gene. He doesn't see that. Has no purpose in view. He doesn't have an end product anyway. Can you imagine that? Yet the living results of natural selection overwhelmingly impress us with structure. So he's saying natural selection is blind. It does not see ahead. It doesn't know the consequences of selecting one gene or other gene. It does not plan consequences. It doesn't see what is the effect of taking that gene and putting it in the new creature. Has no purpose in view. It doesn't know what is the end product. So I might have an eye in front and an eye in the back. It doesn't see, the eyes needs to be in front and working together to see a picture. The natural selection cannot do that. This is an atheist who's telling us this. So we shouldn't accept natural selection as the way that God created. No, God created the information in the head of the family, and then it is distributed. So when we understand the proper science, it really works with the Bible, with the model of creation. It doesn't work with chance and time and laws of nature. It doesn't work with the Uniformitarian, which is the same changes that happened in the past are the same that we observe nowadays. I once was in an airport, actually, and I said to myself, imagine there was no engineer or group of engineers who designed the airport. So one will suggest that we'll have a luggage place, a collection of luggage in one particular area. And then they say, oh no, that should be the runway for the airplane. Oh, that should be the passage for people coming from here. The airport will never be created like that. It has to be designed. This area is for the runway, this area for the luggage collection, this area for stairs, this area for the immigration. But natural selection doesn't have the power to divide them like this. So we need a mind to create all of that. And Richard Dawkins said, despite the fact that the natural selection is blind because it doesn't see ahead, it doesn't plan consequences, what happens if you collect or select this or remove that. It has no purpose in view. There is no end product. And then he said, when we examine the creatures, the organisms and animals and things, they look as if they are designed, because they are designed by God. There is a designer. but he doesn't want to know the designer because he's afraid. And in actual fact, it is frightening to know God the Creator only. But in the Christian faith, we believe in God the Creator and God the Savior. Because if I knew God the Creator only, I'll be frightened because I never satisfied his standards. But when I know God the Creator and God the Savior who loved me and paid the penalty of my sin, I can connect with God the Creator. See how beautiful the Christian faith is based on what we are learning in Genesis. So let us finish natural selection, and any questions before we go into mutation, we can chat about that in next lecture, but we'll see how the time will lead us.
Doctor, I
Yeah,
have just
yeah.
observation. If the natural selection is a factor of the evolution, we couldn't see the wolf right now because the wolf will be disappeared, but we could see the wolf and the bulldog in some places.
All right. Yeah, let me explain that. That's a good question, Riyad. What they are saying is there is a common ancestor, and one branch will become the dogs. And in the dogs, you will have the different kinds at the same time, right? So they believe the common ancestor are there, and then you have branches. So you can see the end product of each branch at the same time. That's why this is a very common question about if we came from apes, why we still have apes with us now. This is not an argument really, because, and we shouldn't use that at all as creationists, because what they are saying, there is a common ancestor. Again, how the common ancestor was formed, they can't explain. And that means the common ancestor have massive amount of information. One branch became the apes and one branch became humans. So there is no problem that to find humans and apes at the same time. See the point, Riyad? Right.
Yes, yes, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other question? Okay. So what he is saying here, I'll just move that. Can you see the full screen at your end or not? Yeah?
Yes, Doctor.
Could see it.
Yes, Doctor.
It's good, yeah, because mine is, my photo is covering part of it. Okay. The term natural selection is very misleading because unlike artificial selection done by intelligent, purposeful humans, nature is not an intelligent, purposeful agent. Let me explain that. Natural selection, they think that the nature chooses. The nature doesn't have the power to choose, actually. It is acclimatization. That's the better terminology. Acclimatization meaning that the organism or the animal acclimatize to the situation they found themselves in. So what this saying is, there is what we call natural selection and artificial selection. What do we mean by artificial selection? Artificial selection means that we can select some characters in the laboratory. That means we are intelligent to understand this. We have a purpose to do this. Like when you ask for a bulldog, for example, I want a dog with a special eye, with a special mouth, with a special lens, with strong muscles. You can select for that for breeding. So the people who breed dogs, you can ask them, I'd like a dog, a mixture between two types of dogs. So you will have the characteristics of strong, but again with a good attitude or whatever. So that's called artificial selection. Artificial selection means you have intelligence involved. You have a purpose. You want the end product to be such and such. So you select the genetic material that is needed. So the artificial selection is intelligent process. The natural selection, you cannot say this is a misleading terminology because nature doesn't have a mind to choose. That's why we prefer the word acclimatization. Acclimatization meaning that the animal is acclimatizing to the new environment that he found himself in. So that's the difference between the word natural selection and artificial selection. But if people use natural selection, we have no problem, because we say, yes, natural selection is a right phenomena, but it cannot create anything at all. It selects from what is available. That is the name natural selection. You are selecting from what is available. Like if you are voting for a prime minister or something, you are selecting from the different candidates. You are not creating a candidate, but you are selecting from what is available. You see the point? So if you are selecting from what's available, you are not creating anything. You are distributing things. Any questions?
Just quick one. What was, it has nothing to do with natural selection, but what was Satan's sin?
Ahead.
Because we talked about it and the question is still in my mind. What was Satan's sin?
Yeah. What was
Satan's sin? What did he do?
All right, he wants to place his place. It is his pride, really, because he wanted to be like God and to take the place of God. That's how the Bible describes.
Okay, not because he misled Adam and Eve, not because of that.
No. That happened after he became a Satan. So he was initially an angel of light, and then he has the pride, and how the pride entered into his life, we don't know. What we know is it was found in him, and that is mabni lil maghul, yani we don't know how it happened, but it was found in him, this pride. He wanted to make his seat as the seat of God, and as a result he was expelled from heaven, and he became the accuser, and he became Satan, tempting Adam and Eve, the creation of God, or the head of the creation of God. That's what all the Bible describes. Okay, obviously Dr. Bassem can explain that more and more and give you the references and everything. Right? Good. Any other questions?
Could you please emphasize or explain more the artificial selection?
Sorry, say it again, because it was
the artificial selection. Could you explain more, please?
Yeah, the artificial selection. You can go to a dog breeder and say, I'd like a dog with special characteristics. You say, okay, I will mix that kind of dog, coyote with dingo, for example. I don't know the names. Coyote with dingo, and I'll give you the dog that you need with the characteristic that you want. That what he does, he takes the genetic material from the coyote and the dingo and mix them together and have artificial insemination, and then you can have a breeding dog. And we can have the animals. When you have a species, that means they can interbreed. So because they have because they are in the same family, so they can interbreed between each other. And as a result, this is artificially. You are not changing, you are not taking the dog to a climate which is very cold, and then the long hair will appear, or long hair will survive. You can do that in the laboratory. That's artificial, not natural. So it is something you can do in the laboratory. Okay. Right, any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question, please. For the first, for the first, let's say that the wolf, when he was created, his descendants, like were different kinds of dogs, or this came later on with the with the breeding.
The essential descendants will be similar to the wolf, right? And then because some of them traveled to a very far areas where it was cold, the one with the strong hair, with the long hair, they survived. The one with the short hair disappeared. And the mixture of all of that makes the variation that we see nowadays. So the first generation would be similar to the original. But when they go to a different place, a different atmosphere and circumstances, the survival of the fittest, right? But all the genetic material is in the wolf. But when they are distributed on Earth, they have different characteristics. Would that make sense or not yet?
Oh, yeah.
If you are not convinced, come back.
No, yeah, I'm convinced, but like I didn't get the idea of the genetics that are like lesser and lesser. Like, do you mean that the smallest dog now doesn't have all the varieties of dogs? Like,
yeah, exactly. You are right. Yeah. The small dog cannot become a wolf again.
Okay.
We explain it by the jelly beans. Yeah.
Okay, but
the
the
head
wolf,
of the family has all the
so the wolves still have all the genetics till today, like.
Yeah. Let me just explain. That's a good question. I understood you now. Right. No, the wolf we are talking about is not the wolf that we have it now. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
The wolf, the original wolf, that is something we don't have it anymore.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I wanted
all the
to
genetic
understand.
material. Yeah. So the one with all the genetic material at the top, we don't know how it looked like. The nearest to us is the wolf in the Kenyan group, right?
Okay.
But the head of all of that was something which is different.
Okay.
So the original creation is completely different.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. That's good. Right. Any other questions? All your questions are very good, by the way. But I'd like you to spend some time studying the stuff. I know your life is busy and all of that, but please go back and study from the beginning. And especially this lecture, because we are digging deeper now into evolution. And we need to understand this to defend our Christian faith. Okay? So natural selection is a blind, purposeless, directionless process. That's according to Dawkins, Richard Dawkins, who believes that he is a big scientist and he doesn't believe in God. And he travels the world saying God did not create. But then he says, what we are examining looks as if it is created. But believe me, he is not created, which is completely illogical. So natural selection is a blind, purposeless, directionless process. So how can a blind, purposeless, directional process create anything organized? That's a big question. Anyone who comes to say to you that evolution depends on natural selection, ask him to explain to you the natural selection. And after what we learned tonight, you will know that natural selection is not a creative power. Okay? So, to finish this, because we will not be able to enter into mutation tonight, because it's another big topic. So that will be next Thursday, God willing. So natural selection, we start with the wolf, and then the dingo, and the coyote, and all the others till we come to the poodle. We are losing information all the way. Yeah? We are losing information all the way. So we cannot take the poodle and make it a wolf again. Right? Because we lost information all the time. And evolution needs to come from the simple to the complex. You need added information all the time. So natural selection actually works against evolution. It's running in a direction which is coming less and less. Evolution needs more and more. So natural selection is really not a mechanism for evolution at all. You see that diagram? It's very convincing, actually. I don't know if you have my Arabic book. If people who reads Arabic, I explain that in the book clearly. So you can refer to that if you have the Arabic book. I don't know if you have any copies or not. So I'll finish with this slide. This is Dr. Werner Gitt, who is a godly man in Germany, and he is the head of information technology in the university there. Probably he's retired now. He wrote many books. He sent one of the books for me to translate, but it is very difficult actually. In the beginning was information. Anyway, he said these words: there is no known law of nature, no known process, and no known sequence of events which can cause information to originate by itself in matter. That's a very important statement. It means the information comes from intelligence. In order to build an aeroplane, you need information from an engineer to build a wing, to build an engine, to build an air condition, to build a electricity connection, all of that. So this information doesn't come from matter. That means not one day you'll find an engine was formed by itself, because it's formed of iron and of copper and of other materials. The materials cannot sit together and form an engine. It needs a designer, it needs an engineer, it needs information. And information doesn't come from matter. Information comes from intelligence. So to come from the simple to the complex, you need added information over time. Okay, we'll stop at there. We have covered a lot tonight. So we'll stop there, and any questions before we finish our session? Any questions?